Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Piccadilly Inn.
Love Talk Radio.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Piccadilly Inn Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Jumpin' John Prevost, and with me is my cohort in crime, Judge Ray Jaffe. So, Judge, another week in the books, another week for the show. Good to be speaking with you.
Yeah, it's good to be on again. They throw you a curveball at the beginning of the show there, John. They gave you sort of like a stutter step on the opening. So
they did. They did.
Just make sure to keep you on your toes. So we are back, week 4, quarter of the season over already, if you can believe it. It's hard to believe.
Actually, I just came to that realization myself, and part of it was because I'm thinking maybe it's time for a written update on our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com, of our Kick-Ass Fantasy League. And it would have nothing to do with the fact that I'm 4-0. That has nothing to do with the fact that I want to write up how the league is going. So,
no, I'm sure it's complete coincidence, but I think that's a great idea. We should do something like that. My team is starting to sort of come back into the fold here. I'm 2-2. I think I might have had, maybe you had the most points last week, but I had an awful lot of points last week, and getting in the mix here. Still pretty much unchanged from the auto draft day, and another win or two, and some people are going to start to need to be embarrassed in our league. You're not one of them. 4-0.
Yeah, I will admit there was a little bit of, I'll say, luck involved with timing, scheduling, however you want to say it, which happens with every fantasy league. And the first 2 weeks, I wasn't the highest scorer. The last 2 weeks I've come on a lot stronger, and yes, I was the high scorer this week. I was just hoping to, frankly, I was hoping to just get close. I didn't think I was going to win. I ended up getting, I think it was 35 points from Jason Witten.
Is that really?
Yeah. I had Jason Witten and I had Robbie Gould going, and I wrote up in my weekly, if only, Gould was gold again, and I got a lot of points from him. And a surprising amount from Witten.
Well, Witten crushed it. It is a PPR league, and 13 catches will do that. So, huge game for Witten.
Yeah, I also wrote up. I had Gold, I had Alshon Jeffrey, and I had Tony Romo going. I was down by about 12 points. I'm in a fantasy league with football scientist Casey Joyner, actually. And I was down by 12 points. I had those 3 going. All he had going was a defense, the Bears defense. I mean, you got to figure you're going to catch up and overtake them. Especially with Tony Romo, right? A couple touchdowns here and there, game over, right? So, and there were a couple touchdowns.
There were a couple touchdowns, just depending on whose team you were talking about.
Yes. So, I was lamenting the fact that once again, for the 3rd week out of 4, I lost, due in no small part to my defense getting negative points. So,
really? Well, who's your defense?
Well, it was Buffalo, and admittedly, I was lax on switching them out. I made sure both of my sons had Buffalo defense, and I made sure they got rid of them. They're playing New England, and frankly, just forgot about doing it in this league. So, sort of embarrassing. That's the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah, that's the way it goes. Cardinal sin. Got to stay on top of the league. So, speaking of which, we're gonna hopefully give some good vibes to our listeners this week and get them set up for week 5.
I think we're ready to go. And I have a question for you. I actually have 2 questions for you. Let's kick it off with this, and then we'll get to our for real segment. Do you think it's Tebow time? I think that's the big question floating around in a lot of people's minds right now. Very poor showing. Is it
very poor showing? Actually, one of my good friends is a lifelong Jets fan, has season tickets, makes the 2.5-hour drive up to the Meadowlands every week to go see the game. Has probably been going to the games for 25 years, and said that was the worst the worst one he's ever been to. So obviously the Jets are absolutely floundering. But is it Tebow time? Because it's the kind of thing, if you make this move to Tebow, it might be hard to move back. I'll tell you what. Here's what I would do if Rex calls, which he hasn't yet, but he might.
Do or do not. There is no try.
So the Jets have the Texans coming up on Monday night. I expect whoever is the quarterback for the Jets in that game will have a miserable time. The Texans are, a phenomenal team, a phenomenal defense, power ranking number one almost across the board. I think it's really interesting. I think it's, if I'm a cynic and Rex is inclined to go to Tebow, I think he puts Sanchez in there in that game. He's going to fall on his face again. I think he can go to Tebow then and sort of, be sort of free of criticism, because I think Sanchez will have back-to-back terrible games. One man's opinion.
Well, I think the opinion's worth a lot. And I can't imagine Tebow, especially with Santonio Holmes going down, and we'll mention him in our injury segment. I can't imagine really giving any sort of fight up to the Texans. So I think you're right. I think it's going to be a miserable time.
Yeah, I think if he, it's funny in a way. I think if he's inclined to actually want to go to Tebow, Sanchez starts. And this is weird backwards logic, I know. I think if he's still sort of sold on Sanchez, you might actually see Tebow start, or Tebow get a lot of time, probably do poorly just to help solidify Sanchez. It's sort of like reverse logic.
No, I hear what you're saying, and I guess it all depends on what's going on in the mind of Rex Ryan.
If anything.
Right. If anything, other than thinking about food. I'm not really sure.
Except figuring out where his next free meal's coming from.
Yeah, the McDonald's don't come cheap, but, better start winning some games, or that's about all he's going to be able to afford either. So, yeah, I don't, I guess it all depends on what they want to accomplish. I think, Tebow would bring some excitement. We've talked about him in length over the course of the last year. Don't think he's a viable starting quarterback in the NFL at this point.
No, I don't think so either. I mean, that's the thing. I think it's, I think it's a rock and a hard place. I don't think they have the next great quarterback sitting there on the bench. So if you go to Tebow, you're just changing things. You're just going to generate some excitement. You're not going to, really, that's not going to be your long-term quarterback solution.
All right, so we actually have a caller on the line, so why don't we take the caller, and then we'll go back to our regularly scheduled program. So let's hold on a moment. All right, good evening. This is Jumpin' John and Judge Ray Jaffe, and you're on Blog Talk Radio, Piccoli and Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show.
Yeah, my Burlington County brothers. It's Jersey in the house. How you guys doing today?
Here he is.
Good, there you go.
My one team's rolling. My other team 4-0, one's 3-1. But I got 38 points from the 49ers. But I lost to the guy that had Chicago and beat me. So because Romo the homo with his 5 turnovers. You know what I mean? So.
If you said that about any other player, we'd have to edit you. But against the Dallas Cowboys, we're absolutely fine with that. Keep it coming.
Oh man, it's crazy. Hey, listen, 2 questions. One for Junior. Well, 2 for Junior. Junior's in our league. It's that PPR league where you get 10-point rushing touchdown. A point for every 10 yards. You hit 100 yards either receiving or rushing. It's 5 bonus points too. Junior's got Fred Davis and he's got Mendenhall. Hopefully Mendenhall plays because he's got Doug Martin on a bye and he has Tashard Choice. It's really slim pickings on the waiver wire. Like there is that guy from New England that's out there. Cause I happen to have Ridley, but I mean, does he try to take a chance on him? Because right now he's got Mendenhall hoping he'll play, and he's got Fred Jackson in his lap. Fred Jackson's got a tough matchup, but any advice for that running back situation? Because there's nothing on the waiver wire.
You said Fred Davis, but you meant Fred Jackson?
I mean Fred Jackson, yeah, Fred Jackson.
Okay. It's funny. And I'll come up later in the show. I don't like either of the Buffalo backs this week. One is the San Francisco rule. Running back against San Francisco is a bad deal. And two, I think it's fuzzy there between Spiller and Jackson. Who's even going to wind up with the carries? So I would look to another direction, depending on what the options are. We're going to talk a little bit about Brandon Bolden, who's the guy you're talking about from New England who had a breakout game. Certainly a possibility. New England has I'm sure it's going to be in for a high-scoring game against Denver. So, what do you think, John?
I think you're. Because he asked the short Choice. Sorry, Choice was like his fourth guy, so he was going to drop Choice for somebody. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Yeah, I would drop Choice for Bolden, by the way.
Yeah.
Choice is in our drops that we were going to discuss later. He's not going to be of any use. He wasn't used last week. Both backs are healthy, but as Ray said, I think we need to amend our dud rule to say that you can't call a dud if you're a running back against San Francisco. So,
we might have to. It's too easy of a fallback plan.
It is too easy. And I like Mendenhall, and I'm actually recommending him as a pickup or as a trade for, because he can't do any worse than any of the other Pittsburgh running backs. The only problem is he's coming right off of his injury. And that Philadelphia game is going to be tough, and you never know which Philadelphia team's going to show up. So you may have to start him based upon your other options, and right now it looks like your best option, Bolden. May be worth a flyer because you don't have really any other good choices.
Yeah, especially if you have Choice as someone you can drop, I'd absolutely take a flyer on Bolden.
Yeah, that's what he's going to do because he's 2-2, so he's like tied for third in his league, but in our league. In his division, but he scored the least amount of points of anybody in the league. So it doesn't matter what you do head-to-head. At the end of week 13, if both people have the same record and say my son beat that guy twice, that doesn't matter. It's based on who has the most amount of points at the end of the year that they score, gets that third spot, second spot, so forth, if it's a tie. They don't go head-to-head. It's kind of retarded.
Right.
So he's trying to get the end there then.
He's going
to you got one more for us, Jersey?
Yeah, I got one more. In that same PPR league, he's got Jennings that's hurt. He goes with Bolden. He also has, Lance Moore, and he has Des Bryant. What he was thinking about doing, and you tell me if it's right or wrong, he was thinking about trying to get Danny Amendola for Lance Moore. Yes, no. I guess the running back's what he needs first. But if
was it a PPR?
It's a PPR league, yeah. He's the fourth pick out of 12. So it is PPR league, yeah.
I'll start this off saying Amendola has to be owned, especially in a PPR. I don't think I would drop Lance Moore. I think there's got to be a different option to drop.
He's got Greg Jennings, he's got Des Bryant, and he's sure not going to drop Antonio Brown. So he's got what's his name? He's got what's called his quarterback, Rodgers. So he wants to keep Jennings, and you never know what Des is going to do. He didn't do a bad week this past week. He gave him I think 20-some points because of 100 yards and the carries. You get 5 bonus points for 100 yards. So it's the first time Des woke up. So he's he's not sure what to do with that. Does he stay with what he has, or take a flyer and drop somebody for Amendola? But
Amendola's. I mean, he is a good player to have in a PPR. Now, Lance Moore. That's a tough call. Lance Moore is actually one of the top 10 targeted receivers last week, so he is in Breeze's sights. I think. Frankly, that's probably a 50-50 play. I can't say that that's a strong move one way or the other. Lance Moore is getting a lot of looks this year.
And with Breeze, they're lamenting the substitute referees, and now that the real ones are back, they're saying that quarterbacks are more in sync with their offenses. It might just be coincidence, might be holding from the defense. I don't know what it is, but Breeze is optimistic. He's more in sync. And if he's in sync, you want Lance Moore. I'll tell you, I'm not high on Des Bryant, and I know this might be sacrilege to some people. I almost think Amendola would be a better option than Des Bryant. I don't know how many balls Des Bryant dropped last night.
He's horrible. Yeah, he looked horrible.
I don't know.
Sync, yeah. Like you said, he doesn't run good routes, and it's like he's going through the motions. I could be wrong, but that's what it looked like last night on there. And like you said, he was almost thinking, well, do I drop Des Bryant? But, man, sooner or later he will go off. But like you said, Amendola kind of is maybe the number one receiver at St. Louis, but St. Louis is more of maybe a run first, pass second, or again, you look at the quarterback, so that's why I figured let me call you guys for him and see what you got.
Yeah, Jersey, one more piece of advice for you. We have a guest on the phone here on the show, a site called the Fantasy Player Exchange. You got to check it out. It's a great way to get a little side action on a daily basis if you want it, and they're about to come on and tell us a little about it. So hang in and let's know what they have to say. All right.
So we're going to
thanks, Jersey.
Let's talk to you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
That's great. Thanks. Yeah, we're going to go to commercial break, and then we'll be back with our guest from Fantasy Player Exchange. So 2 minutes. This is the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show, Piccolo Ian Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show on Blog Talk Radio.
Now is your chance to experience the new game that's transforming fantasy sports. Fantasy Player Exchange is a new daily game that allows you to compete against friends and fantasy foes for cash prizes. With FPX, you can select 5 players from any active sport. Sign up now at fantasyplayerexchange.com for your chance to beat ESPN Radio's Henry the Commish Brick and win $1,000 cash. Go to fantasyplayerexchange.com to sign up and play today. Remember, that's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
Fantasy football owners, it's draft time, and KickassFantasyFootball.com makes it easy.
How do we make it easy?
Projections from the experts, cheat sheets with your scoring rules.
What else?
Articles all season long, waiver wire picks, trade advice, everything you need to win a championship.
How about a free judgment from FantasyJudgment.com, a $15 value?
Now we're talking.
Subscribe today for just $9.95 and we'll throw in a complimentary cruise for 2 to the Bahamas.
Cruise to a championship with KickassFantasyFootball.com.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
I'm sexy and I know it.
Car Toys, the most innovative car customizing shop in its class. Summer is here, and so's the heat. Better get that remote start so you can cool off in your car in style with your smartphone. Car Toys can install remote start on Mercedes-Benz, push-button start, and stick shift. Reduce that glare with the best 3M window film. And while you're at it, get your car detailed by Car Toys Detail Department so your ride looks, feels, and smells brand new. Car Toys defines what everything for your car really means, from TV to reality. That's why Car Toys is the leader in the industry in car customization. Car Toys' knowledgeable team are the best in their class. Like Car Toys on Facebook and check them out at distinctivecartoys.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Piccolo Ian Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. I'm your host, Jumpin' John Prevost. Judge Ray Jaffe is on as well, and special guest Brian from Fantasy Player Exchange. Before we get to Brian real quick, I do want to remind everyone that we have a call-in line, which is 877-511-1024. We just had a nice little chat with our most loyal caller, and that's Jersey in the house. And then we're going to have a little chat with our most loyal listeners from Fantasy Player Exchange. So, Brian, how you doing?
Excellent, guys. Thanks for having me on tonight.
No, it's great. And Judge Ray Jaffe and I were actually talking about his results this week. He definitely have a strong advocate in the judge, and he's a very smart man. So, it must be a great game that's going on in your site.
Yeah, so we've talked about the last couple weeks, last 3 weeks. Got on it, checked it out. First week learning the ropes. Second week I got hooked, and third week, I'm all in. So talk about the results in a second. But, Brian, it's a fun site. There's a lot of options there, all major sports. You can play daily. Tell us a little bit about it and what should the people look for?
It's a lot of fun. It's that, that fantasy fix that you get on Sunday night when you have, the last game's coming down and you need 10 points to win and you're watching the last game. It's kind of like you can get that every day because you're picking a team and you got those players playing and you know that, you can win. And you get that excitement like every day, and I love it. And the fact that you can play all the sports in one, like you can play baseball players, football players, NCAA, college football players. I love that you can mix it all together, and it does create a lot of options for a lot of fun teams, and it's a lot of good times.
So, Brian, I'll tell you quick, just to exactly back up what you just said. So 2 weeks ago, I'm in the Beat the Commish game, which is a great game we're sponsoring here, $2 game, great way to get started on the site. And what I've done the last 2 weeks is my stud of the week. I've gone all in on that player. I'll get all the shares I can and just fill out the rest of my team. So I have AJ Green. I'm thinking basketball. AJ Green.
Right.
2 weeks ago, he has a monster game, 180 yards, 190 yards, touchdown, and I'm sitting pretty, and all of a sudden this guy's Ben Roethlisberger, and I'm like, oh, man, this is going to be close, The final results come out, and he edges me by the slimmest of margins. It's like, but he did. He got that rush. Then last week, stud of the week was Peyton Manning. Went all in on Peyton Manning. He had the monster game. And I'm trailing a little bit, but I've Aaron Rodgers left and one share of Aaron Rodgers. And is it going to be enough to get me over the top? He just put me over the top, so I am proud to say I beat the commish last week. And it is, you get that excitement, going on a daily basis.
Yeah, no, I'm getting it too. I play in these games. This week I didn't have such a great week myself, unfortunately, but I'm just like I'm hooked on it also, and I just want to let everybody know we are offering, $10 for everybody who signs up now, so you can play, have some fun on the house, and see if you can win. Beat the Commish is one of the games you definitely can join. It's only $2, so you can play that for 5 weeks or whatever you want to do with the cash. It's yours.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun to beat the Commish game. So Commish is sort of the chairman of the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football budding empire. He's on ESPN Radio Sunday morning. You get a chance to take him down, get a little bragging rights over the Commish. You can call him to a show, tell him that you took up to the cleaners, and if you do well enough, make a few dollars in the deal. So it really is fun. I have been telling some friends about it. I'm on board. It's a great site, guys.
All right, cool. Yeah, I appreciate it. There's also something else I did want to mention, that we do have a challenge that you could challenge your friends. You can actually play direct games against whatever friends you want. You just click the challenge, you put your email address who you want to play against, and it'll send them a challenge. And it's another fun way to play.
That's a great feature.
Well, hey, Brian, so for those of us that don't have any friends, how does that work?
You send me the email, and I'll play against you. I'll be your friend. How's that?
There you go. I'm actually interested. You talked about adding the college games to the exchange. So how exactly does that work? Is it the same scoring as in the pros, or how do the college games work? Is it just all mix and match?
Yeah, it's all mix and match. The college games, it's the same scoring as the pro. Right now we have Division 1A football. We have to work on, maybe getting college basketball into there soon. But, right now it's working really well. I'm enjoying it. If you're a college, football fan, then it's definitely for you.
So Fantasy Player Exchange is the site. It is a lot of fun. It's perfect for the sports junkie. I mean, we're here talking about fantasy football, but if you're a fantasy baseball guy or a basketball guy or a hockey guy, if you ever decide to play again, it's all there for you. And, it's just a ton of options at your fingertips. So it's a good time.
Yeah, no, definitely agree. This idea was definitely, I think it's a great idea, and I love it myself. I wouldn't be able to do this if I didn't love it so much. And this is what I've been looking for since I started playing fantasy. Wow, probably like 20 years already. So definitely a long time coming, but it's a lot of fun.
I think it's a great idea, and I think it's a great site, and I'm proud of the judge for beating the commish. That's something we all aspire to.
Yeah, we'll have to do beat the judge promotion sometime.
Yeah,
right?
I know. You might actually you might save some money, because I'm not going to lose every week like our friend the commish. We got to get him on the stick here.
Yeah, we'll have to coach him up a little bit. See what's going on there.
Maybe the commission needs to dial in and listen to our show, John, and take our studs of the week and play them.
Well, if you notice, he used to, and he started off well, but past couple weeks he hasn't. He's going to be
a no-show tonight because he knows he's going to get drilled if he joins on tonight. I'll be relentless.
No, well, I'll tell you what. Well, Brian, we want to thank you for coming on. I think it's a great site. You can stay on and listen as we'll give the commish kudos where he deserves it, because he is 4-0 in our Kick-Ass League as well. So I think let's be fair and give him credit where it's due, and let's give him shit where it's due. And beat the commish is definitely somewhere where he needs to work on his game a little bit.
Okay, well, fellas, thanks for having me on. I definitely enjoyed it, and I definitely will listen for a little while. So
fantastic. Fantasy Player Exchange, good stuff. Thanks, Brian.
All right, thank you, guys. Have a good one.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye.
All right, so, again, Ray, congrats to you on beating commish. It's something that we all aspire to and wish we could do on a daily basis.
We love when you have a chance to beat the commish. It is. We talk about it a lot, and it gave me great satisfaction.
All right, so I have a question for you. A couple of names I want to throw out, and I want to ask you if you think they're for real. And the first two are marquee names, and Marquise Colston and Chris Johnson. And
all right.
Throw out, yeah.
Marquis, I got it. That's good. That's clever. You ate your Wheaties this morning, John.
I did. I did.
Chris, it's funny. They're actually they're both following slightly similar patterns from last year. Because I had Colston last year. This is ringing a bell as well. So Chris Johnson, we know last year he missed camp, started off terribly, sort of started to kick it into the second half of the year. He finally had a breakout game. Chris Johnson will be better than he's been the first 3 weeks. I don't know that he's going to consistently be as good as he was this last week. I think that that Tennessee line just still has a bunch of problems. He's still by far and away the back that gets contacted the most before he even gets to the line of scrimmage. So I might actually put Chris Johnson on the trading block, to tell you the truth, after that week and see if he can get some bites, because I think he's going to just struggle with that Tennessee team. Colston, something similar last year. He sort of had a little bit of a low profile. Then he ran off. It was either 3 or 4 out of 5 or 6 weeks. Maybe 4 out of 6 weeks he had really nice games, 120, 130 yards, touchdowns. So maybe he's about to put a little string like that together. So I feel more comfortable that Colston's going to sort of keep up that pace next couple games versus Chris Johnson. And I know you hate me to say that because I know you love Chris Johnson.
No, I you have to face facts sometimes, and I agree with you. And the fact that he did this against Houston, I think, is amazing. And maybe they'd finally worked some things out. I mean, you'd have to figure with Mike Munchak as a coach, that they would get going as an offensive line group. But let's look at Chris Johnson's next couple of games. He plays Minnesota next week, and then they have Pittsburgh. So right off the bat after his big game, you got two of arguably the better run defenses in the National Football League. So I don't expect him to get 141 yards again. But Chris Johnson of old, you started him no matter who they played. So
it was a no-brainer. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not really sure which way to go. But after those two, he's got Buffalo and Indianapolis. So there's definitely a chance for him to come back. So I'm not expecting great things out in the next 2 weeks. The following 2 weeks, he may be a stud. But I think he's definitely, after one game, he may be a trade high candidate if you can. But I also think you need to make sure you get something of value back if you do that. Don't just trade him to trade him, because he will have games like this again.
If you're in a high-activity league, trade him now, then trade back for him in 2 weeks when his new owner's frustrated with him.
That's actually very good advice, sound advice from the judge. And Marquise Colston, I think it's just a matter of, I think there was some sort of injury concern earlier, and it also may be that things are just finally clicking with Drew Brees. So, I think you need him in your lineup. There's a league I'm in that he was dropped last week. So
really?
Yeah.
A 14 league?
No, it's a 10-team league. I couldn't believe it.
That's crazy. That's crazy. That's what as playing fantasy, and most people that listen to the show are seasoned. You don't usually have novices listening to a Blog Talk Kick-Ass Fantasy Football show. But one thing you have to do is just not overreact. That's clearly an overreaction by somebody to drop Colston, who's a top 20 receiver, top 25 receiver, which makes him minimally a wide receiver too in almost any league. So yeah, it's so it's someone else's gain from that move.
I mean, the problem with Colston is that he's in an offense with a lot of talent. So he's not going to have 140 yards and 2 touchdowns every week. It's just not going to happen. But he's got the talent. You put him on a different roster, and I mean, he's a clear number 1, top 5 wide receiver. But in the offense that he's in, Drew Brees can get it to a lot of different people. They have some couple speedsters going downfield. They got Sproles coming out of the backfield. They got Jimmy Graham, and there's definitely a lot of options. So he just doesn't have quite as much opportunity. But yeah, to go drop him like that, it's kind of outrageous. But hey, maybe it's my game. We'll see when waivers process. Big game that I have question marks in, Judge. So let's see what you got for us. And that game was Miami versus Arizona. Because there's huge numbers coming out.
Yeah, that was.
So let's throw I got 5 or 6 names. I'm going to throw at you. Brian Hartline had 253 yards receiving and a touchdown. Devon Best had 123 yards. Ryan Tannehill obviously had 431 yards passing and a touchdown. And then on the other side of the ball, you had our favorite punching bag, Kevin Kolb, had 324 yards and 3 touchdowns. Andre Roberts had 118 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, I mean, have at it. I mean, who is for real in this group?
Yeah, that was the surprise of the week. I mean, I don't think anyone looked at that game and thought this was going to be a fantasy windfall. I'll tell you the 2 guys out of that group you said that I sort of like going forward are Brian Hartline, who he just had the best game of his career. So again, temper expectations. But that being said, he is, I believe, Tannehill's primary target. He didn't do much against the Jets 2 weeks ago, but the week before that, he had another very good game. I think he had caught like 9 balls or something like that. Yeah, 9 for 111. So 12 catches this past week. So PPR league, Hartline, he definitely seems to go into moving into Tannehill's top target. So I like him going forward. I do like Andre Roberts going forward as well. Great to play again, offside of Fitzgerald, takes the attention away. Roberts has had a couple good games, so the other guys, Cobb included, Bess. I think you still have to be wary. I think it's maybe more of just sort of a flash in the pan, but for my money, Hartline and Roberts take out of that game as sort of guys to maybe look into pickups this week.
No, I agree with you. I think Hartline, obviously, I think he had his best game of his career as well, but he's definitely the number 1 target in Miami. So, you got to pick him up because, that type of activity just doesn't come along all the time. And Miami's got a decent defense, more of a rush defense, obviously, than a pass defense. So, there's a good chance they're behind in games. And Andre Roberts is emerging as the clear number 2 in Arizona. So, if Kevin Kolb can keep any semblance of the passing game up, Larry Fitzgerald gets double covered, and there's Andre Roberts. So I like your calls there. I will say, though, Miami's next 2 games are at Cincinnati and St. Louis, and then they have a bye. So I'm actually targeting Tannehill to pick up in one of my leagues where I have Carson Palmer. It's a 2-quarterback league. Carson Palmer's on a bye, and I'm looking to pick up Tannehill. So, I think there's definitely a couple high potential games out of him the next 2 games. So maybe get what you can out of him, squeeze it out, and then he probably goes back to the trash heap.
Yeah, we'll see. I think Cincinnati's obviously a damn good offense. So I think just on that fact alone, I think he'll have to put the ball in the air against Cincinnati for sure. St. Louis, not sure. I think more questioning how he might do in that game just because of the type of game it might be. Yeah,
Cincinnati has their problems in the backfield, defensive backfield. They have some hurt cornerbacks. They're down a couple of them. They getting some linebackers back healthy, but their defense is very suspect at this point. So could definitely be a high scoring affair. Tell you what, we got Yogan. All right, there you go, another loyal chatter. And he has a quick question, and so let's put it to the judge. Says, I need a flex this week out of Ben Tate, T.Y. Hilton. There's pulling a name out of the hat. Brandon LaFell, Justin Blackman, or LeGarrette Blount, and it's a PPR league. So, Judge, who would you pick? I may be surprised. I know who I think I'd pick, but let's go with the judgment.
All right. So let me. I can't see the question. So it's LaFell, Tate. Who are the other players?
T.Y. Hilton, Blackman, and Blount. Yeah.
All right. Interesting question. I think I'm looking at some of the matchups here. And I think I'd have to go with, even though he's not the starting back, I think I'd go with Ben Tate. Against the Jets, I think the Jets are in a lot of trouble. I really do. I think Houston's going to dominate them in the game, so I think they'll be on the ground a lot. I think it could be the kind of game where Ben Tate has, potentially a pretty big second half just because it's out of reach. So, of that group, no one's really jumping out at me except Tate. I'm going to say Tate.
All right. Not a bad call normally. The only thing I'd caution is Tate did leave the game in the third quarter, I believe, last week, and there is some sort of unspecified injury. We'll get to that when we come back from our break. So I would monitor that throughout the week. I'm actually going with Hilton. I was going to say that's a good call against Green Bay. I mean, that would probably be, if Tate's hurt at all. I'm with you, John. I think I'd switch to Hilton as well. Yeah, I mean, it's, clear second option, but again, it's the same formula. You start your stud wide receivers double covered, and there's the second guy up, next man up, and so I think maybe that would be the call. Yeah, I checked Tate on Friday and Saturday, and if not, I'd go to Hilton. I'm with you. All right, so we're running up. We're a little bit over for our second break time, so let's take another 2-minute break. This is the Dick Lillian Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. Judge Ray Jaffe is with me, your host, Jumpin' John Prevo, and we'll be back in 2 minutes.
Fantasy football owners, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show is back every Sunday this season with everything you need to cruise into a championship. Join me, the professor,
and me, the commish, along with fantasy insider Matt Lowry. Get all your fantasy football news as we break down all the players and tell you who to start and who to trade while we take your calls all show long.
We'll see you every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. all season long here on 97.3 ESPN. Check us out on the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Listen up, fantasy football owners. If you want top quality, guaranteed authentic sports memorabilia, there's only one place to go. Prestige Sports Marketing. They offer autographed baseball and football jerseys, framed jerseys, helmets, bats, photos, and amazing artwork. They're 100% guaranteed authentic, so you can feel 100% confident. Check out Prestige Sports Marketing at PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. That's PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. Enter promo code ESPN to get 10% off.
Now is your chance to experience the new game that's transforming fantasy sports. Fantasy Player Exchange is a new daily game that allows you to compete against friends and fantasy foes for cash prizes. With FPX, you can select 5 players from any active sport. Sign up now at fantasyplayerexchange.com for your chance to beat ESPN Radio's Henry the Commish Brick and win $1,000 cash. Go to fantasyplayerexchange.com to sign up and play today. Remember, that's fantasyplayerexchange.com.
Fantasy football owners, it's draft time, and KickassFantasyFootball.com makes it easy.
How do we make it easy?
Projections from the experts, cheat sheets with your scoring rules.
What else?
Articles all season long, waiver wire picks, trade advice, everything you need to win a championship.
How about a free judgment from FantasyJudgment.com, a $15 value?
Now we're talking.
Subscribe today for just $9.95 and we'll throw in a complimentary cruise for 2 to the Bahamas.
Cruise to a championship with KickassFantasyFootball.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Dick Lillian Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. This is your host, Jumpin' John Prevo, with Judge Ray Jaffe. And, Judge, time's flying, so let's get right back into it. And hold on a second, little technical difficulties, and I'm getting right back. All right, so we just got done talking about who's for real. We had a big discussion on Miami and Arizona. Just want to remind everyone that there are bye weeks coming up. Dallas, Detroit, Oakland, and Tampa Bay are on bye weeks. and I think all 4 of those teams really need it. So good luck. Good luck recuperating, and I'm a little upset at that Dallas game. It just really.
Well,
really,
upset from a fantasy perspective, from a fan of. If you're a Philadelphia Eagles fan, where we're based from, you can never be unhappy with Dallas losing.
Well, Ray, as you well know, I definitely have some inclinations and some negative aspects of looking at New York Giants players, and I think I'm definitely moving that direction for Dallas players as well. I've had Romo throughout the years, but this may be the last time I ever pick him. You'll never see, I'll say never. You'll never see Eli Manning on any of my teams, just for that fact. But
I know you'll see him on all my teams. I can't stand the Giants.
Yeah, well, so and I cautioned in the beginning of the year. I wrote an article about doing auction drafts and cautioning about picking players from your favorite team too early and waiting too long on players from teams you don't like. But I definitely have that fault. So I speak from personal experience there.
The first step is admitting it, John.
Well, I'm ready for treatment. One of the many things I may need it for. Let's get right into injuries. Jake Locker, and I just found out Jake Locker might actually be out for the season with his shoulder injury.
That's a tough one.
It's a tough one. His young kid is looking good, and Matt Hasselbeck slides right in. So definitely, if you're looking for a quarterback, go jump on Matt Hasselbeck. Another person might be out for the year, Santonio Holmes.
Yeah, he could be. After that Jets fiasco, I think I don't know what to make of the Jets and Santonio Holmes. I mean, I guess he was their top target, even though no one can get him the ball. It really is going to be a question of who emerges. If Holmes is out for the year, I don't know who they're going to throw the ball to. Chaz Schillens, Jeff Cumberland, Jeremy Carley. There's not a lot to pick from.
Stephen Hill is a big receiver, had a great first game, and was an up and coming. He's hurt as well. So
right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
This is funny, actually. My 8-year-old son, we were talking, and he said, my friend told me, I don't know if this is true, that there's a guy that fell down and just handed the ball to the other team. I'm like, well, he's kind of right, because if everyone who saw that play, it was really odd. I mean, he went down, obviously was hurt and in pain. He just kind of flicked the ball and went right into the San Francisco player and ran it back for a touchdown. So he
was close to the sidelines. You'd think he could at least flick it out of bounds or something.
I'm not really sure. Maybe the play was over. I'm not sure.
But I agree. Hill, when he comes back, if I don't even know what the latest is on his injury, but he might be a guy you look to because someone has to catch the ball there. But I don't know what the Jets are going to do offensively. I think everyone is going to be in trouble, which is going to make for a long season for the Jets fans.
Yeah, it's not a good instance. So, my apologies to your friend who's a diehard Jet fan. He's not going to have much to root for.
No, it's going to be a tough one.
Yeah. So, we talked about Ben Tate. He definitely went out of the game, has some sort of injury. I think it might be a toe injury. I'm not really sure. Not really sure what the status is. So you want to monitor it throughout the week. Greg Jennings has a groin injury, and I don't think he'll play this week. So
I'm not sure. Has Greg Jennings played this year? Talking about a guy that's sort of fallen off the cliff. Jennings has done nothing this year. Well,
Green Bay had their problems getting in sync. I don't know. They played a couple tough defenses, so they didn't have a couple great first couple of weeks. They're back. They had a great game last week, so they're definitely back on track. So if Greg Jennings didn't go out of the game, maybe he would have put up some numbers, but you're right. He really hasn't shown up this year.
No,
I have Jordy Nelson in a couple of leagues, and he hasn't shown up a whole lot except for this week. So, a lot of that consternation going on.
Oh, he showed up more than Jennings. I mean, Jennings. I don't think Jennings has more than 40 yards catching in a game this year. He's been a tremendous. I mean, he was coming off the injury, so he's been a tremendous disappointment this year.
Yeah. So when we're talking about players to trade, Jersey in the House actually, I almost said drop Greg Jennings, but I couldn't quite say that. And since I hate Des Bryant, that rolled off the tongue a lot easier. But yeah, he hasn't really done much.
Yeah,
He's injured.
Yeah. Tough year.
So yeah, tough year. One thing also, I'm not sure many people noticed, but especially being the big Philly base that we are, Michael Vick actually hurt his knee on that last play. So I mean, he's listed as day-to-day, but once again, there's an injury situation for Michael Vick, and you just got to watch out. So I hope any Vick owner has Nick Foles waiting as backup, because most likely going to need him.
Yeah, it's almost impossible to think Vick's going to make it through this year. The way, with the punishment he's taking, it's amazing. Yeah, actually the second half of the Eagles-Giants game probably was the cleanest as far as him getting hit. But he is just, I mean, the accumulation of blows, it's almost impossible to think he's going to make it even another 3-4 weeks without missing some time.
Yeah, it's a shame. He definitely is an electric player, but when you're always battling those nagging injuries and you're always an injury risk, it's a risk from a fantasy perspective. A couple other injuries of note, a couple other ads we want to go to based on injuries. Matt Hasselbeck, obviously, Jake Locker's out. A couple of Green Bay guys that you may or may not have on your roster, but I think with Jennings out, you want to add, and that's James Jones and Randall Cobb. Not sure if you have a clear favorite from those two, Judge, but who would you pick up first if you're going for a Green Bay receiver?
Great question. I think I'd probably pick up Jones first. I was higher on Cobb. He actually had a better first game, and frankly a little better game. Well, that's not true. Jones had the 2 touchdowns. Cobb caught a couple more balls, but James Jones seems to be a little bit the more reliable target for Rodgers. He had one game where he did nothing, but other than that, he's had 4 for 81, 5 for 55, 5 for 56. So, I think you're probably safer with Jones. I think Cobb is more likely to, sort of disappear on you for a week. Yeah,
I agree. I definitely see Aaron Rodgers looking more towards Jones, especially when Greg Jennings goes out. So I would look for that to continue.
Yeah, I think Jones. That's a great point, John. Actually, that I think you sort of made is Jones is more what Jennings is now is more what Jones is. I think Cobb's more your game breaker, your speedster, and Nelson's taking that role a little bit. I think Jones is going to be more. Frankly, Jennings has turned into a bit more of a possession type receiver, and I think Jones fits that role.
All right, and then Nick Foles we talked about with Michael Vick. Talk about Andre Roberts, and I think Brian Hartline is actually owned in most leagues because he had a big game the other week. So, he's definitely out there on the waiver wire. I think a lot of people did get him. But I think Andre Roberts, he's the real deal. He's a solid number 2 in Arizona. They're starting to pass the ball a little bit more. So, I think I would go with Andre Roberts pickup.
Yeah, I like Roberts as well. We talked about it a little bit earlier. I agree.
And then, the one other name, if you're hurting him running back, Jackie Battle, he's not going to be getting a ton of yards. He looks like the goal line back. He's eating at Ryan Matthews' opportunities. That may or may not continue, but if you got the roster space, and especially if you're hurting a running back, I think Jackie Battle is a name you want to look at. Yeah,
I think my concern might be as Matthews gets healthier, does he see less time? But of course, with Matthews, you also have the flip side of the coin where he could, trip on the way coming into the stadium and be out for 3 more weeks. So good handcuff from Matthews.
All right, so those are definitely ads. If you don't have Rashard Mendenhall, I think he's at it in most leagues. But just as a reminder that he is coming back not only off the bye week, but coming back from injury. So Rashard Mendenhall, I would look at him. We're running up or a little bit over for our next break, so we'll take 2 minutes and take a word from our sponsors. I want to remind everyone we do have a guest call-in line at 877-511-1024, and we have a chat room. Get your questions in, and we'll get them on the air. And this is Jumpin' John Prevost with Judge Ray Jaffe. This is the Pick Lillian Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. We'll be back in 2 minutes.
Listen up, fantasy football owners. If you want top quality, guaranteed authentic sports memorabilia, there's only one place to go. Prestige Sports Marketing. They offer autographed baseball and football jerseys, framed jerseys, helmets, bats, photos, and amazing artwork. They're 100% guaranteed authentic, so you can feel 100% confident. Check out Prestige Sports Marketing at PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. That's PrestigeSportsMKTG.com. Enter promo code ESPN and get 10% off.
Fantasy football owners, the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show is back every Sunday this season with everything you need to cruise into a championship. Join me, the professor,
and me, the commish, along with fantasy insider Matt Lowry. Get all your fantasy football news as we break down all the players and tell you who to start and who to trade while we take your calls all show long.
We'll see you every Sunday morning at 9 a.m. all season long here on 97.3 ESPN. Check us out on the web at kickassfantasyfootball.com.
Don't let your fantasy issues become a reality. Fantasy Judgment is the premier dispute resolution service for all fantasy sports leagues. Led by attorney Michael Stein, the Supreme Court of Fantasy Judgment will resolve any and all issues or conflicts that arise in fantasy leagues. This includes disputed trades, collusion, abuse of power by league commissioners, lineup and roster errors, draft issues, score discrepancies, and interpretation of league rules. We alleviate the burden for league commissioners and allow everyone to focus on winning their leagues rather than arguing over disputes. Visit www.fantasyjudgment.com.
I'm sexy and I know.
Car Toys, the most innovative car customizing shop in its class. Summer is here, and so's the heat. Better get that remote start so you can cool off in your car in style with your smartphone. Car Toys can install remote start on Mercedes-Benz, push-button start, and stick shift. Reduce that glare with the best 3M window film. And while you're at it, get your car detailed by Car Toys Detail Department so your ride looks, feels, and smells brand new. Car Toys defines what everything for your car really means, from TV to reality. That's why Car Toys is the leader in the industry in car customization. Car Toys' knowledgeable team are the best in their class. Like Car Toys on Facebook and check them out at distinctivecartoys.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show, sponsored by Pick Lillian. This is your host, Jumpin' John Prevost. Judge Ray Jaffe. Judge, got 7 minutes left. So let's go right into our favorite segment of the week. That would be our studs, duds, and sleepers.
Yes,
so,
love it.
Yeah, yes. And we'll start right off. 338 yards passing, 3 touchdowns. Your stud from last week was?
Peyton Manning. And Peyton, it's funny, a couple of years ago, that probably would have been, on this show, that would have been disallowed to even put Manning out there as a stud, but I think the world's changed enough that it was legitimate to put him out as really a strong QB1 option, and he did not disappoint. He's starting to look like Peyton Manning.
He is. He's definitely come along. I do remember our little side bet early in the preseason, and I made a statement that Peyton Manning will not be in the top 10 in fantasy quarterbacks. He's starting to look better, so I'm starting to get a little worried.
We shall see.
We shall see.
And, John, for you?
Well, 118 yards rushing and a touchdown and 37 yards receiving. Might have wanted a little bit better numbers, and I also might have wanted a win, but I went with Marshawn Lynch as my stud. The guy just runs hard, and I would expect a little bit better from St. Louis. Obviously, it's division game. Seattle had a little bit of tough time traveling there. But fairly decent studly numbers from Marshawn Lynch.
Yep, very solid.
Very solid. Speaking of solid, there's solid dud. Was there a solid dud that we heard from your dud last week?
Yeah, I thought we were going to see a lot more. Coming into the game, Dallas was one of the higher-ranked pass defenses. in the league. I thought they'd give Cutler a run for his money, really, and I thought the Bears might go to more of a running attack with Forte back. Didn't happen. Cutler, 275 yards passing, 2 touchdowns, even with the 5 interceptions Romo threw. So not very dud-like. I think Cutler would have been a solid start as sort of a QB2 for you if you're in a 2-quarterback league.
Yeah, I expected not as good a game, let's say, as he had and as Chicago had. I thought especially Dallas was at home, and I thought Chicago was in trouble. Silly me. It was not just the dud was Dallas. Not just everyone on their team was just fell down flat.
No, and because I was going to say our rule's not in place. And spoiler, I'm going to take advantage of it again. But I think maybe we're going to have to set the rules. So tell us about your dud for this week, for last week.
No, I think we need to reset the rules. You cannot provide a dud as a running back that's going against the San Francisco defense. It's just not fair. Even Adrian Peterson, although he had a decent game against him, he still didn't break 100 yards. So, I agree. So the last week that we will have a dud, my dud was Sean Green. He had just over 30 yards, very dudly numbers, but it's unfair in so many ways, either to pick a running back against San Francisco or, frankly, at this point, to pick anyone from the New York Jets as a dud. So, so I think we gotta call that. So, but there you go. So Sean Green is my dud. Sleepers. Wow. I think we got a lot to talk about in sleepers, don't we?
Yeah, I actually had to check to see if this guy even played. I had Brandon LaFell as my sleeper, and my theory sort of held true. I thought the Atlanta-Carolina game would be a high-scoring game. It was 30-28, but LaFell had zero part of it, and he did play. So I can't even cop out and say he didn't play for some reason. He played. He did not have a single catch. As we say, when these things sort of go the way they go, Brandon LaFell, actually he's not even still sleeping. He's dead. I mean, he just there's no life at all.
I picked him up in a couple leagues after I think it was week 2. I'm still waiting for some return on that investment. My sleeper last week, and after the first half, I was getting very worried because I didn't have a good stud and sleeper from the previous week. My sleeper from last week was Josh Freeman. He ended up having a pretty decent day, 299 yards and a touchdown, I think, and an interception. But I think as sleepers go, that's not a bad day for a sleeper. Josh Freeman's definitely not one of the premier quarterbacks in the league, but, he had a decent day against Washington, almost decent enough to win.
Yep. I think you certainly got me last week. I was 1-3. You could argue 3-3. Nice work, John.
There you go. I don't want to sprain my arm patting myself on the back, but after the absolute bottom out I had from my stud and sleeper from the previous week, I'll take those choices. So let's roll right in and let's see what you got for this week, Ray. Let's roll down your stud and sleeper real quick.
All right. So my stud for this week is Matt Forte. I think he's going to see a lot of action against Jacksonville. I think a big game for Forte, very big game for Forte. Now we didn't have the rule in effect, and I'm sort of taking the easy way out. But there's multiple reasons, and now next week we won't do this. But I have both the Buffalo running backs as my duds this week: Fred Jackson, C.J. Spiller. One, obviously, primarily they're playing San Francisco, but two, it still, I think, is going to be a little unclear that there's a lead back. I do think they might be in a bit of a split-time situation. Now, they both are a little dinged up, too, so you have to see how that plays out. I stay away from the Buffalo backs. And my sleeper this week, tight end Fred Davis from the Redskins. Sort of quiet first couple games. Last couple games, he's had 90 yards, 70 yards, 5 catches. I expect, same thing. I think Washington's got to throw the ball against Atlanta to keep up. At least 80 yards and a touchdown for Fred Davis.
I tell you, that would surprise me. I was sort of big on Fred Davis going into the year. He's done nothing for me, since. So I'm not a big Fred Davis fan.
This is the week. This is the week.
So I'll tell you what, you picked Matt Forte as a stud. I like him as well. I have him in a couple leagues. I agree with that assessment. I don't want to double up on him. But I am going to double up for my stud from last week. I don't know if that's allowed or not, but I'm going back. Let's go back to the well. Marshawn Lynch versus Carolina. I think Seattle's going to be angry. I think they're going to take it out. Carolina's got a horrific run defense, and I think Marshawn Lynch has a ugly day. My dud, I tell you, I'm really going for it this week. My dud is going to be Maurice Jones-Drew. He did not have a good week last week. Chicago defense looked great versus Dallas. They're stopping the run. They're going to force Jacksonville to pass. They don't have a great passing offense, and I just think it's going to be a horrible game for Jacksonville. And my dud is Maurice Jones-Drew.
I think that's gutsy, but I think it's a good call. I think I like it.
And then I mentioned my sleeper earlier in the show. I'm going Ryan Tannehill versus Cincinnati. They're down a couple of corners. They're really hurting on the defense, so teams can really throw on them. So I'm looking at Ryan Tannehill as a sleeper. And
good again. I do think Cincinnati, because Cincinnati can score, boy. So he'll have to keep up.
Cincinnati can score. Another shout out. I've been wrong enough, and I want to point out when I'm right. I had A.J. Green as a top 5 receiver during the preseason, and so I think he's finally rounding into that. So, I agree with that. This could be a high-scoring game.
Actually, I saw something where A.J. Green's numbers for 20 games compare favorably with anyone who's ever played, including Randy Moss, other than I think Moss had a few more touchdowns. I mean, he is blowing it up, and his kind of taking the NFL by storm.
Oh, good for A.J. Green, good for Cincinnati, and good for the Cincinnati fans. And on that note, that's about all we have for tonight's show. I want to thank everyone for listening. It's been a great show. I think Brian's coming on, Fantasy Player Exchange, and of course, Judge Ray Jassy. It's always good to exchange some information with you. So I'm looking forward to next week.
Always a pleasure, John. Always a pleasure.
Always a pleasure. And don't forget our website, www.kickassfantasyfootball.com. We are sponsored by Thick Lily Inn, and this is the Kick-Ass Fantasy Football Show. Thank you all for listening.